Hi, welcome to my presentation on the new moon in Taurus, a guide to help us through these times. As all these presentations on the new moon and full moon and in the Archetypal News Network, I would like to first thank Ren Butler and the Archetypal News Network and the team of Archetypal News Network for providing the opportunity for me to give a new moon reading on in Taurus for today's presentation. But more importantly, I'm really excited about their launching this program network because I think it's going to be very informative, very useful for guiding all of us through these times as different presenters present on various topics, but with all of the purpose to speak about what's happening in the sky archetypally with our planetary archetypes and how they correlate to our experiences on the ground, whether it's worldwide news or personal news, and then also translating that to our personal experience. So, and I would also like to thank, there are two people I like to thank, and this is the two who just hosted the full moon in Scorpio presentation 2 weeks ago. And I apologize if I mispronounce your names, but Dulcie Cardinal and Tatiana Hassan for their excellent Scorpio full moon webinar. I hope that I can make a smooth transition for listeners from their webinar on Taurus and Scorpio to my webinar on the new moon in Taurus at this time. And I hope that this serves as a transition for the next presentation in 2 weeks from now. So anyway, thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation. And again, I hope it's just an easy, smooth transition. I'm going to try not to repeat too much, even though the new moon in Taurus, of course, repeats the archetypal themes of the full moon in Scorpio, the sun being in Taurus at that time. But now we have both the sun and moon in Taurus. So without further ado, I'm going to move to the next screen, which is going to, as much as I'd like to really just dive into the topic, I need to sort of introduce myself, if you will. I don't believe that many of you may not even know who I am. So I would like to start by introducing myself. First of all, my name is Christina Hardy, and I operate an astrology program with classes as well as doing readings and so on in astrology, archetypal astrology, as well as evolutionary astrology. And I'm also a regression therapist according to the deep memory process method based upon Roger Wolger's work. And I correlate the astrological archetypes in the sky to people's actual experiences in regression therapy. But the main thing, the reason why I'm so connected to archetypal astrology is because I studied for just about 7 years in the Philosophy, Cosmology, and Consciousness program under Richard Tarnas back in, well, I started the program in 1995 and was there for 7 years studying in the doctoral program. And soon after I got there, about 6 months after I got there, I actually became the program coordinator in this very new at the time, thriving, flourishing, wonderful program. And it continues to flourish today. It is just an amazing program to be a part of. And I could talk for a whole hour just about that, but I'm not going to. I just want to say that that is where I'm rooted in archetypal astrology after having studied under Richard Tarnas during those years and taking his classes. This was before he actually published Cosmos and Psyche, but I was taking his Psyche and Cosmos classes and any class I could that he taught, especially related to the Passion of the Western Mind at the time in the Philosophy, Cosmology, and Consciousness program. So I'm really honored to be able to give a presentation to the same group or a similar group today. And I am going to now just dive right into it because I have a lot to talk about. So what I am going to talk about, new moon in Taurus, obviously, the importance of this new moon time. I'm going to be in a very Taurean type of theme, speak to the earth body and the physical body, as well as the social, political, and economic bodies. They are, as you know, many of you probably, as you go into deep meditative space or sacred medicine space, it is very multidimensional, multivalent. And I know from my own experiences that the personal physical body is very much, is not only connected, but it is the Earth, planetary Earth body. It's like we're all walking little planetary Earths, if you will. And the reason why I'm bringing this up right now is because I'm speaking to the theme of Taurus, which is it is the fixed Earth sign of the chart here. So, but I'm also bringing in the social, political, and economic themes because the outer planets, especially Uranus and Pluto, but Neptune, are deeply connected to this new moon in Taurus time that we have now entered. And so I'd like to speak to those. In particular, I'm going to be speaking to the Uranus in Taurus and Pluto in Capricorn. And I'm referring to right here, looking at Biden, our President Joe Biden, and the initiatives that he has just launched and their similarities with Franklin D. Roosevelt. It's absolutely fascinating. I didn't know that I was going to be talking about this in this presentation, but I just got so wrapped up in it, and you'll find out why when we get to that slide. It really is, the astrological correlations are actually quite stunning. So I can't wait to talk about that part. And of course, we cannot, a very important part of this is Saturn in Aquarius squaring Uranus. And then at this time, at this new moon time, Jupiter is still in Aquarius, but it's at the very, very, very end of Aquarius. So that has a significant impact on our experiences at this time. And then I will be diving into the archetype of the sign Taurus and its ruler Venus, and the significance of the moon in our personal evolutionary trajectory. So I'm doing something a little different than actually what I had intended to do, and what most people probably do when they give these presentations, and that is to start with the personal and then move into the collective dynamics. Whereas I get so excited about the collective dynamics that I'm starting with that, and then I'm moving into the personal. And also I just want to say too, because partially what kind of is reinforcing this is Dulcie and Tatiana having just spoken a couple of weeks ago about the full moon in Scorpio, and speaking to the Taurus archetype and speaking to the personal dimension. I thought it would be nice to shift into the collective and then bring a bit of the personal in at the end. So let's move on here. So here's the chart for the new moon, May 11th, 2021. Pacific Daylight Time, it would be 11:59 a.m. And for those of us on the East Coast, it is 2:59 p.m. Okay, and here is the sun and moon in Taurus. When Dulcie and Tatiana were speaking about the full moon, the sun was at 7 degrees Taurus. So it has now moved to 21 degrees Taurus. Okay, of course, we'll be talking a lot more about this whole chart, but I want to keep things really simple and just focus on the basics here. So there we go. So the bull, Taurus, the qualities of this archetypal energy, as you probably all know, is incredible. Like it says here, undeniable strength, very sturdy, long lasting. It does represent our desire nature, especially our personal desire nature, and fertility. Now, these are just a couple of descriptors for Taurus, the Taurean energy, just because I want to get us into the energy, start slowly entering into the archetype itself. And then, as you know, Taurus represents the Earth's bounty, especially at this time of the year. It's just phenomenal. Everything is just absolutely exploding everywhere in incredible beauty, whether it's the trees or it's flowers just everywhere. I live in North Carolina, and so it's a little bit warmer where I used to live, and compared to where I used to live. And things are probably about 2 weeks ahead of Ohio, which in Northeast Ohio, which is where I used to live. And so I'm just taking absolute delight in these extra weeks of really experiencing the Earth's bounty between the birds and the flowers, and the smells are just incredible. The sounds, the water, it just, I truly feel like I live on heaven on earth, and very appropriate for this Taurean new moon time. Now, of course, it represents the Earth's body as well as the physical body. And this is what I was referring to earlier on the summary slide of how easily and how the reality is that we live in a multidimensional world. The Earth's body is the physical body. The personal physical body is the Earth's body. And we'll be speaking to the Venusian archetype in relationship to this in Taurean as the ruler of Taurus. But also, I really want to bring in the social, political, and economic body, because that is also part of the dimensions that is very much related to the full global Earth body, Gaia, if you will, and the personal body.
Before I move to the next slide, I'd like to thank Alex Stein. I listened to his most previous, I believe, Planet Talk recording before May 11th, and I was really struck by a phrase that he used, which I think is very appropriate here. And by the way, before I say the phrase, he was speaking specifically to the Saturn last quarter square to Uranus, so the Saturn square dynamic. And the phrase is, which is very appropriate, is there is no freedom without responsibility. Again, there is no freedom without responsibility. I'm going to move to the next slide now and show Pluto in Capricorn, Neptune in Pisces, Uranus in Taurus, and the Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, where they are located on the chart. So again, here we have the new moon in Taurus at 21 degrees. And then moving to Pluto in Capricorn, nicely trining this new moon. Okay, I'm going to explain what all this means in a minute and using some examples here. And then along with that, we have Uranus, which is in Taurus. Okay, and Neptune, which is very nicely sextiling the new moon in Pluto. And then finally, we have Jupiter in its last minutes of Aquarius, probably finishing up in a couple of days. And so this is a very good time for envisioning, which I am going to be speaking to as at the very end of this presentation here in a little meditation that I will be doing. And then Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn continues moving in Aquarius as it squares Uranus and Taurus. Okay, so I'm going to move backwards, which means moving these things out to this slide as I introduce the following slide. And so again, this is the social, political, economic body that I'm speaking to right now. And what I'm going to be introducing is the relationship between Joe Biden's 100th day address to the nation and the programs that he announced on that day, which are set to revolutionize the political, social, and economic body of the country. In his speech, Biden echoed Franklin D. Roosevelt with a call to do big things and to restore faith in America, and he did so boldly, just as Franklin D. Roosevelt. And the slide that I will be showing, we have to flip through a slide to get there, but it is so full of information. I'm going to stay at this slide while I read this and describe this. What I'm going to be reading is from, it's basically, I thought it was CNN, but I guess not. It's from Vox.com. And I will be including the link to that so that you can all see it in case you want to read it yourselves. But it makes a direct relationship between FDR and Joe Biden in his speech. And again, I am speaking to the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in relationship to this new moon at this time. And again, his 100th day address was 2 days after the full moon as we were coming into the new moon of Taurus. So Like FDR during the Great Depression, Biden took office in a time of crises and has tried to use that crisis to reshape government. But FDR didn't merely seek to pull America out of the Great Depression. With the rise of fascism around the world and crumbling trust in government at home, the world were asking if American democracy was even working. FDR wanted to prove that it did. That was the deal part of the New Deal, a new contract between the government and the public, including the marginalized. It was supposed to be proof that a democratically elected government could be responsive to the forgotten man and build a better country for all. Biden's plans aim to address the same challenge, not just building back better after the coronavirus, as his slogan has it, but showing that a democracy can still build, period. We have to, and this is in quotes, we have to prove democracy still works, unquote. Biden said at his speech to a joint session of Congress on Wednesday night, the 28th of April, that our government still works and we can deliver for our people. In our first 100 days together, we have acted to restore the people's faith in democracy to deliver. In his speech, he then made the parallel to FDR even clearer. Quote, in another era when our democracy was tested, Franklin Roosevelt reminded us, in America, we do our part, unquote. For Roosevelt, there was an explicitly political purpose to the public works programs, to restore Americans' belief that the government works for them. Biden's biggest legislative achievement so far, $1.9 trillion relief package, and his largest proposals, a $2 trillion infrastructure program and jobs plan, and a $1.8 trillion investment in families as a means to directly help people, but also to bolster the idea of America at home and around the world. So the reason why this is so significant is that Pluto, first of all, Pluto in Capricorn, well, let me start with Uranus and Taurus. Uranus and Taurus, when FDR made his speech in 1935, it is now 85 years since that time. His speeches, and the slide will show this, in 1935 was spring and summer of 1935. Uranus had just entered into Taurus 85 years ago, okay? The cycle of Uranus is 84 years. So it had just entered into Uranus and Taurus, basically 85 years ago. And now it is returning again, and we have Joe Biden speaking a similar language around social justice and social equality, and investing, funneling a huge amount of money into social systems in order to empower and support the poor and disenfranchised. And I'll be showing later how this new moon in Taurus, the Venusian archetype, has a strong play in this too, with a real focus on women's empowering women on many levels. So this image here, I really like this because it's in many ways, obviously the lightning bolt is the Uranian, the shock, the change, the shaking up the systems that need to be shook up, which so many astrologers have been speaking to since 2008, is the Pluto in Capricorn patriarchal institutions across the board, from the economic institutions to the political, to the social, to the gender, and so on. And since Pluto's been in Capricorn since 2008, there's been a lot of shaking up, both good and bad happening. And then Uranus in Taurus coming in and really creating tremendous opportunity to release, to free, to liberate, to shock the system for the sake of liberation. Biden coming into the fore, calling upon FDR's bold programs and designing it for today's worlds and the various issues of today's worlds, is a direct relationship to not only Uranus and Taurus having gone, it's basically a Uranus and Taurus return, with Uranus coming around 84, 85 years later to its same position as it was when FDR was here, but also Pluto and Capricorn now is in exact opposition from where Pluto was in Capricorn when FDR proposed his New Deal. So, so just want to show, so this sort of, I love this image because it really shows sort of the Pluto and Capricorn darkness of the patriarchal systems that we have been underneath, and now moving into the Jupiter, Saturn in Aquarius, Neptune in Pisces, the envisioning of the future. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And so now I'm going to move to the slide where it actually breaks down the comparison between Roosevelt's New Deal initiatives and Biden's American Families Plan. So just to take a minute for you to, I know this is a lot of information. I'm going to read through it and just hopefully done in such a way so it doesn't seem overwhelming, but breaking it down into categories. So again, Uranus with Roosevelt's, his time in office, or when he introduced the New Deal initiatives in the spring and summer of 1935, Uranus was moving 0 to 5 degrees Taurus. Today, Uranus is 11 degrees Taurus as Biden introduced the American Families Plan in the spring of 2021, okay? Pluto was 23 to 26 degrees Cancer at the time of Roosevelt's New Deal initiatives. Now Pluto is coming to, or is at 26 degrees Capricorn, okay, in an exact opposition from the position it was in during Roosevelt's time. Now, as many of you know, we are, in the United States of America is coming to its Pluto return. The is a 248-year cycle of Pluto that it takes to go around planet Earth from our perspective. And we are now encountering our Pluto return, and we're at the very, very last, I believe it's the very last degree that we've come to. And in especially throughout 2022 and 2023, well, from now through 2023, of course, this is a really, really, really tight orb. We are basically going through our Pluto return. So the timing is really appropriate for kind of cracking open the system in order to bring the fresh air of social justice and bringing social systems into play. So Roosevelt, what was so bold and cutting edge in 1935 was he had launched the New Deal initiatives, which was for the sake of recovering from the Great Depression. And he introduced the Works Progress Administration, a vast public works program that provided jobs for the unemployed, okay? And then in the summer of 1935, the National Labor Relations Act was introduced to the United States psyche, also known as the Wagner Act, creating the National Labor Relations Board to supervise union elections and prevent businesses from treating their workers unfairly. Again, really cutting edge at the time. And then in August 1935, Roosevelt implemented the Social Security Act, which guaranteed pensions to millions of Americans, set up a system of unemployment insurance, and stipulated that the federal government would help care for dependent children and the disabled. So cracking in new initiatives into the economic system, Taurus. Biden, the American Families Plan, to help us recover from the economy, or to help the economy recover from the pandemic, but also to recover from Trump. His intent is to rebuild the middle class through massive infrastructure programs. Again, Taurus. Education, 2 free years of community college and lower college costs for low and middle income students, an increase in Pell Grants. Children, to help with childcare and invest in maternal health. Provide tax credit to families with children, provide comprehensive paid family and medical leave so that workers are able to take the time off that they need to take care of a child, or an elderly one, as well as healthcare, nutrition assistance and reducing healthcare premiums, huge, provide home care to aging and disabled Americans, and to increase the wages of home healthcare workers. What was so exciting for me when I heard Biden's plan on April 28th, it was that it just rung kind of the experience I had, or so this feeling of liberation and freedom that I had when I was living in Sweden, and I was young. I was from the age of 12 to 16. My mother is Swedish, and we had moved there when I was a young teenager, or just entering into my teen years. And I had the opportunity to live there, and I really got to experience what a social network felt like. My mother was a single mother with 3 children, and there was tremendous support. But I also got to see how all the other kids around me, their parents had incredible childcare support. I mean, that the system of childcare in the Scandinavian countries is phenomenal. And the system of education from an early age and free education through college is phenomenal. The healthcare system, of course, phenomenal, and the support of the elderly. So I got to experience it in my teenage years from the inside out, and the incredible safety and support that I felt and my family felt by living inside of that system. So when I heard Biden's American Families Plan just a few weeks ago, it felt very liberating. So I'm going to break it down a little bit more. Here's just some images to help sort of hold it into place, and again to relate it to the Uranus and Taurus, especially the Taurean aspect of it, but also transforming, transmuting the work of Pluto and Capricorn, building infrastructure through creating strength and durability, rooting and building to last a long time, okay, through these programs. One of them is the workforce development, expanding the federal workforce through job training and placement programs across the United States. Moving down here, transforming the crumbling transportation infrastructure. As you know, roads, bridges, rail, and transit systems. As for any of you who have lived in Europe or visited there, you know how incredible the mass transportation system is. Biden seems to be dedicated to increase that and strengthen it. Building high-speed broadband infrastructure in order to reach 100% coverage so that all people have equal access to the internet. Coming up here to the upper right corner, investing toward building and rehabilitating homes for low and middle income home buyers, building and preserving affordable and energy efficient housing units. This is for the poor, in order to help so that they have the security, the support, the long-term viability that owning a home, living in a home provides. So Taurean. Rebuilding the country's water infrastructure. It would replace all the nation's lead pipes. Needless to say, as you all know, having those pipes replaced is huge for the children and families of America. Decreasing the toxicity of the lead in our systems. Not to mention also the Earth system. So Uranus and Taurus, liberating all things Venusian. There's a real focus on empowering and strengthening women in the workforce, in homes and families, providing support for childcare. Just really huge. When I worked in the university system for a couple of decades, so many of my colleagues were young mothers growing their families, and most of their salary was given over to childcare. And oftentimes they wondered if it was worth it to be working, but they wanted to strengthen themselves professionally and that were thinking upon, once the children were older and were leaving the home, they wanted to be able to have the strong foundation of having built a professional life. But the enormity of the stress of trying to raise children and working full time, and the burden that carries, not to mention poor people who are working at minimum wage and can't afford childcare. So the whole childcare issue, I think, is really huge. So women's rights, permanent federal legislation on childcare, parental leave, and child tax credits, equal access to resources, a universal living wage, closing the tax loopholes and taxing the rich to distribute to the poor, for example, by raising corporate taxes. There are many ways in which he really is basically taking from those who have way too much money. I don't mean to oversimplify this, but distributing it so that there is more equality throughout the whole system. And that is exactly what I experienced in Scandinavia, the equality of relative equality of all. Balancing the scales, for example, reparation initiatives to provide some means of justice for Black people due to the historical injustices perpetuated against Black people. Again, that's huge. That's cutting edge. That's revolutionary. So Uranus and Taurus, liberating the Earth's body. Is it breakdown or breakthrough? Well, I like to say, I really feel, I mean, we've so many of us have been aware of the issue with climate change since the 70s. And it's now, and to our it's been astounding that more and more people haven't been on board about it. And I know you all experience that, but now it really seems to be coming into mass consciousness, the awareness about climate change, and that we absolutely need to do something about it. And I want to say before it's too late, there are a lot of people who do say it is too late, but Biden ran on a platform committed to climate change and cleaner energy. So, and he won the election. So it says a lot. I think we are going in the direction of breakthrough. On day one, the United States had rejoined the Paris Agreement, as you all know, and committed to reaching net zero emissions economy-wide by no later than 2050. And he also initiated a new target that aims at 50 to 52% reduction in US greenhouse gas pollution from 2005 levels in 2030. And part of the $2 trillion infrastructure plan is to shift to greener energy over the next 8 years. Okay, now I'm shifting to the personal, okay? So we started large, getting to the personal here. I want to take a few minutes and I'm going to orient you with this image that I'm showing here. What you're looking at is a bridge going across very turbulent waters, okay? And the reason why I'm showing this image, I want to explain the moon, since this is the new moon in Taurus. Bridge provides security and support as we are walking across in turbulent water. But that is true. And what I want to show here is that the moon represents, as you all know, the emotional body, okay? And it represents how we instinctively find emotional support, emotional safety on a moment-to-moment basis, okay? So the bridge in some ways is a metaphor, and I just happen to like this metaphor, that's why I'm using it, as a way to provide the security and support as we maneuver through our days on a day-to-day, moment-by-moment basis. Now, what I'm also showing here too, which I want to get across, is the south node of the moon. So the moon contains both the south node of the moon and the north node of the moon. So I see it as kind of one package. And the way that I look at it is, well, first of all, the nodes of the moon are in direct relationship. It's the relationship between the sun and the moon at every moment in time. Now, the south node of the moon I have here on this platform to the left. And what it represents is our past, okay? The past that we come from, and everybody, you know, has a different way of interpreting that. I would interpret it as our karmic past, or basically it's the aspect of our ego that we brought in from previous lifetimes that we found security in the past. Just like the present, which is the moon, we create security on an emotional, instinctive basis from moment to moment to moment. So we bring in the memory of our past life security patterns that we are choosing to evolve in this lifetime. So this platform is, you know, it's on rock, it's secure, it's not going anywhere. So this is where on an egoic, instinctual level, we find our security and our support. However, we are called forward emotionally, we're called forward to evolve. And so that's what the north node of the moon represents. So it's kind of like, imagine you standing on this platform, and on a moment-to-moment basis, in the present moment-to-moment basis, as we engage with life and engage with our experiences, we are emotionally kind of journeying through it and instinctually finding our way through it in the way that provides the best emotional security at any given moment. So, and that's what the bridge represents. But we are moving towards the north node, which can feel emotionally really scary because it's relatively unknown territory. Or maybe someone has a lot of experience with the north node dynamic from previous lives, but there is some wounding around it that in some ways terrifies them, scares them, makes them feel emotionally vulnerable. But we're being called towards the north node because for the soul to evolve, we are looking to become more whole, more complex, to bring in more experience so that we are more empowered as a soul in the world. And the north node direction is that specific direction that will really help us to empower. But it's hard to let go of the security and the safety of the patterns that we've created in the past, which gave us the security and the safety in the past, even if they were pretty not very positive. They could, you know, created issues, but they still provided emotional security. So it's hard to let go of this stable platform in order to move towards the unknown. However, our soul calls us forward into the unknown. Okay, so the reason why I'm giving this image right now is to point out this is a new moon presentation in Taurus, security and safety, really reinforcing that. The question is here on a personal level now, what are you seeding for your future? We have Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius. This is a lot of the Aquarian energy that's going to pull us forward, at least certainly for the next 2 weeks until the moon comes into opposition to the sun, and we have our full moon in Sagittarius on May 26th. So, but also being the new moon in Taurus now, we will be arriving at the full moon in Taurus on November 19th, 2021. So one way to think of this, that this moment in time, which is the new moon time, is a seeding moment, as all new moon times are. But the particular archetypal energy that we're connecting to here is the basically what can provide the most grounded, rooted future that supports the vision that I hold within my soul. Just like the United States is doing right now. We're moving, you know, as Biden says, saving the soul of America, which is so Pluto and Capricorn appropriate as we are coming to our Pluto return. For you personally, the question is, what is the vision that you hold in your psyche? What is the vision that is in your cell, you know, in your cells that's calling you forward? And the type of vision, new moon in Taurus, is one that provides security and support. However, one that is cutting edge, that breaks new ground, that liberates you, that liberates those aspects of you that needs to be liberated, especially on an emotional basis. I want to speak to the archetype of Venus as the ruler of Taurus. Okay, Venus is a yin polarity. So as we're moving into the new moon energy here, the yin polarity is inward. And so it is important to spend time at this new moon today, on this new moon day, inward, whether meditating, contemplating, in nature, connecting with the earth, gardening at this beautiful time of the year. It is a fixed modality, okay, which is the strength, the support of the bull. The archetype is the goddess of love and beauty. Venus represents the core essence of the feminine nature. Again, it is yin. And the way that it is yin is that it magnetizes to itself. It accomplishes, it creates through magnetizing, just like the incredible beauty of a flower. It doesn't need to do anything but exude itself into the world, and it brings the bees and the birds and people to it to appreciate it or to nourish themselves from it. Okay. So Venus, through her powers of divine beauty, she ignites the spark of creation. So it is an incredibly creative, explosively creative archetype. It rules the arts, masseurs, potters, foodies, musicians, singers, dancers. So anything that's body related, anything of the five senses of seeing, touching, tasting, smelling, hearing. This is a time to nourish and enhance and express the five senses in any area in which one is drawn towards. Venus brings balance, harmony, melody, form, elegance, the beautiful form of the body, the beauty of forms around the earth. It represents or it rules loving the body, self-sex. Taurus is the nourishment and the enjoyment of the physical body, whereas Scorpio is the enjoyment of sharing one's body with another, especially, you know, the scorpionic energy of sharing one's emotional body with another as well as physical body with another, and ultimately, you know, the desire to merge with another. But Taurus it's self-oriented. Again, it's yin, it goes inwards towards the self. It is erotic aliveness and self-expression. Of course, I have to include in this presentation the Venusian archetype, The Birth of Venus, the painting by the Italian artist Sandro Botticelli, probably made in the mid-1480s. Okay. So the other aspect of Venus is it does rule our values. Okay, it shows how much or how little we value ourselves. And this should be a separate sentence, but if we value ourselves, you know, fairly well and grounded in reality rather than hubristically or inflatedness, but, you know, truly grounded in who we are, that is what we magnetize to us. You know, the people that we magnetize to us will mirror that for us. We will be magnetizing empowered people, people who value themselves and stand true to themselves. Okay. Whereas if we do not value ourselves or we diminish ourselves, that is also what we tend to magnetize to us. Others who also do not, who also lack self-confidence, or there's so many ways in which we do not value ourselves, but it ends up being mirrored in the people that we connect with. Of course, then the polarity can be played out where if we devalue ourselves, then we will magnetize to us someone who powers over us, and we're playing the opposition dynamic out. But the reality, but Venus being the ruler of Taurus, the main thing I wanted to point out is the importance of strengthening our own self-value and how that is mirrored in our outer reality. Okay, I'm moving towards our 2-minute meditation here. I got a note, I think. Do I? Yes, okay. So I got a little bell I'm going to be ringing to start the meditation, but now that I've introduced the archetypes, I think one of the main archetypes I like to focus on, of course, is the seeding, because this is a seeding time for the future. As I said before, you know, the future of November, which could be November 19th, or it could be 2 weeks from now. And so as Jupiter is about to leave Aquarius in 2 days, this is an opportune time, the new moon time, the universe's time, to find the seed of your vision and prepare to plant it for the future. So going inward, I'm going to ask that you quiet your mind. And now, as well as for this day, in the next 3 days, to enter into a quiet space, and as much as you can into a dream space, sinking into your body, taking joy in your body, but moving inward and asking yourself, what personal vision inspires you? Give you 2 minutes to sink in and reflect on that. May your vision be rooted in practical reality, the one that grounds you in the beauty and bounty of this world, such that you can daily experience the beauty and bounty of who you are. May it be so. Bless you. Thank you. I look forward to next time.